The master gave my fellow disciple and me an egg each. My fellow disciple snatched away the phoenix egg, leaving me with a mere snake egg. The phoenix egg nurtured by my fellow disciple died, while mine is about to hatch into a soaring serpent. On the eve of the snake egg's hatching, my fellow disciple switched our eggs, unaware that the phoenix egg was not dead, but undergoing rebirth. That snake egg, infused with my heart's blood, now recognizes only the two celestial maidens by my side, calling me master. My fellow disciple opened his celestial eye, realizing the master's left hand held the phoenix egg, though one need not the celestial eye to see. The phoenix egg and snake egg differed vastly in size. Fearing I'd cast an illusion in his presence, he forcibly opened his celestial eye. Feigning bewilderment, he asked, "Elder brother, which shall you choose?" His large eyes rolling round and round. "I've heard phoenix maidens hatch their own offspring. Elder brother cultivates the way of dispassion, lest his spiritual heart be tainted." I stood with my hands covering my face. "Junior brother, the way is not about being heartless," I said. "I still have my celestial eye. Time for me to dazzle you, I suppose." My junior brother hid behind our master, glancing at me warily. "Senior brother, I walk the unshakable path. I cannot see through ghosts and demons. The celestial eye belongs to our sect." Our master said, "Everything in the sect belongs to all of us," he replied. I exhausted all my cultivation power in the demonic abyss to bring back the celestial eye in the divine egg. I fainted from exhaustion outside the sect gates. When I awoke, the celestial eye and divine egg belonged to the sect. Our master looked at me with pity then, placing the celestial eye and divine egg in the treasure vault. He called me the pride of our sect. But when I was gravely injured, my spiritual veins shattered beyond repair, our master merely said with indifference, "You are the eldest senior brother of our sect. This is what you should do." The celestial eye is not only a holy relic that unveils ghosts and demons, it is also a panacea for healing wounds. Yet our master refused to let me use it. Thus, I was crippled, never able to wield a sword again. I soaked in the cold spring for 3 years, before regaining some strength. Then I was summoned to the main hall to hatch the divine eggs with my junior brother. How is it that no one in our sect could hatch these eggs? The 2 divine eggs began trembling as soon as I entered the hall. Our master must have sensed it. Using status and power to subdue them, "Go ahead and choose. I won't move from this spot." I asked our master, "If the hatching succeeds, who will the hatchlings belong to?" Our master's expression did not change. "They will naturally belong to our sect," he declared sternly. I crossed my arms. "Then I won't hatch them." Our master's face darkened briefly, then quickly returned to normal. "Chen Pingan thought it should be Hal," I said lightly. "Whoever hatched it belongs to them." 2 divine eggs floated fiercely on the surface. One could tell at a glance they were elders of the sect. They had long used spiritual power to incubate them, just that it hadn't succeeded yet. If they had succeeded, they would have formed spiritual essences long ago. Such a fortuitous event, how could it fall to me? Since returning from the demon abyss, I've had a vague connection with the divine eggs. My master and the others probably discovered it too. As for letting the junior disciple get involved, it was simply because they coveted his unblemished spiritual body. Outstandingly handsome, all cultivators are infatuated with him. This body is most suitable for dual cultivation. The junior disciple said, "Senior brother, it was the master who took us in. Mount Lucian is our home. We shouldn't divide it into yours and mine. It's been a long time since I last saw you. Your cultivation is still lacking. There are many great principles," I said. "The gate of our sect used tombs from. I carried them back from the Kunlun Mountains. The talismans used by the sect were created by my hand. The stone steps on the mountain, I carved out each one with a chisel. Master, is the divine weapon you wield still satisfactory?" The sword at the master's side trembled slightly. The divine sword in the master's hand, I pulled it from the mouth of an ancient evil dragon. At that time, the master said I could not control the divine weapon, so he kept it for me. If an ordinary person had done all this, they would have been made an elder long ago. But I was not. The master said I was still young, that I needed more tempering. Now my spiritual pathways are severed, I cannot ascend. The spiritual air in my body is no different than a mortal's. The master said impassively, "The sect belongs to all of us. How can the sect be so cleanly divided? Why has Chen Pinggan grown such a thick Is he going to establish his own sect? I knelt down. Your disciple means no such thing. I understand this matter. I've been expelled from the sect. The enemies I've made for the sect, when they come calling, I will surely die. Master, you know my current condition. I cannot blame you for being unhappy with my lot. 20 years ago, it was I who brought you back from the edge of the cliff. 3 years ago when you fainted at the mountain gate, it was the sect that saved you. I am not ungrateful. But as a cultivator, one should not dwell so much on gain and loss. I pity you as well. That is why I let you incubate this sacred object. If you obtain the opportunity, and it recognizes you as master, that would be best, but if not, before he finished speaking, I interrupted. Junior brother, you choose first. The junior brother smiled. In that case, I choose the one to the master's left-hand side. Thank you, master. I weighed the snake egg in my hand and sighed. It seemed ordinary to me. I was just an ordinary egg, while I was also an ordinary blade of grass. The master knew that as a grass, I had no spiritual power. But this grass still strived to make progress. So he took me as his disciple. I brought the snake egg back to the cold pool and soaked it together with him in the cold pool. People in the sect were injured. They were treated with spiritual herbs and grasses. Of course, I had no part in that. My healing effect was extremely low. Hardly anyone came here. The snake egg lost all vitality in the cold pool without a single trace of life. I walked out of the main hall. The master called out to me. He said I had lost my spiritual veins. My cultivation had been cut off. The path to immortality was hopeless for me. If the egg could not hatch into a deity, after the elders discussed, they would allow me to return home, so I would no longer waste my years lingering on the divine mountain. The implication was no grudges for being exiled from the divine mountain. The snake egg seemed to be floating in the water, constantly spinning around me. I slowly took off my robe and took out a small bowl. I was originally a blade of grass from the foot of Mount Kunlun. The Buddha traveled the world and brought me back. Thus I took a human form. My body was nourished by the essence of the sun and moon, full of spiritual energy, spiritually powerful. Only the master knew my origins. He must have also known that now I had lost all my spiritual power. Only this body, grown naturally, still had some use. When the small knife cut across my chest, I gasped as if being torn apart. As if a ferocious beast's claw had reached into my chest and torn my heart into thousands of shreds. Ah, so painful. A small half bowl of blood. I trembled as I placed the bowl on the shore. The snake egg swam towards the shore, as if sensing something, and entered the bowl. I dropped the small knife and leaned against the shore, gasping heavily, watching the snake egg in the blood. It instantly drank the half bowl of blood dry. I struggled to keep my eyes open. This blood-craving thing. I did not know if it was a sacred treasure or a demonic creature. I bandaged myself up and kept the snake egg with me. Then went to the sect's dining hall. Before I even reached the entrance, I heard a blue-robed disciple loudly discussing inside. I heard the senior brother has become immortal now. The chubby one nearby responded. Really, or not, for such an arrogant person as him, this is like stripping away his life. It wasn't a concerned tone, but rather as if waiting to see the drama unfold. It's true, I heard it from a junior disciple. The senior brother has lost all his spiritual power. The blue-robed disciple patted the chubby one and continued. Haven't you noticed he's been coming to the dining hall more often? After emerging from seclusion? The chubby one pursed his lips. I hate those self-proclaimed pure and noble types the most. Let's see how he competes with the junior disciples now. With such a graceful demeanor, my junior martial brother. I have heard that my junior martial brother is destined to marry a celestial phoenix maiden. I felt the snake egg roll in my embrace. I entered the dining hall and fell silent. Taking my meal tray, I walked out. Not far away, a blue-robed disciple continued. He thinks he's some celestial being. Now without his divine aura, he reeks even worse than the demons I've encountered. The plump one said in a low voice, Speak softer, he hasn't gone far. Yet the blue-robed disciple raised his voice. I mean for him to hear. That blue-robed disciple, I know him. His name is Yang. 3 years ago he went to the demon abyss. Before that, he wanted me to go with him, so he could gain status in our sect. I refused. He was my junior martial brother. The snake egg and I ate and slept together. It would often float in the air, circling around me. When tired, it would come to my chest to sleep. Only every half-month would it need to drink blood. I heard my junior martial brother gets along well with the phoenix egg. With his unmatched beauty, he found many rare flowers and grasses in the cultivation world. Bathing the phoenix egg daily, the phoenix egg gradually awakened, now showing layers of golden light. Yet my snake egg shows no sign of life. Still circling by my side, I was filled with anxiety as he bared his teeth to threaten it. If you don't hatch, I'll boil and eat you. It hid trembling by my heart, feigning sleep. The next morning when I awoke, many bird eggs surrounded me. The snake egg was floating, straining to lift a bird egg. The two eggs were similar in size, a comical sight. I couldn't help but laugh. Why did you steal bird eggs? The snake egg seemed dazed, dropping the egg it carried. I caught it steadily, also bringing the snake egg over. It must have feared I'd truly eat it, so it brought back some bird eggs. I was just scaring you yesterday. I won't eat you, but if I'm expelled from the sect, will you leave with me? It bobbed up and down, expressing agreement. The tyrannical king, as usual, soaked in the frigid pond. It seemed a faint stir could be heard. I scooped up the snake's gall from the water. Peering closer, a slight crack was now visible. I clutched my heart. The connection between us was growing ever more tenuous. I sensed my own bliss. The snake egg nuzzled against my face. The next day, as I went to the canteen for a meal, I heard little Fatty sigh deeply. He said the young disciple had gotten into trouble. He stole the primordial fire from the Hengjiang sect. That, he said, was the spiritual energy to hatch a phoenix egg. The phoenix egg was burned for 3 days and 3 nights. It lost its vitality. The primordial fire was also destroyed. I walked away silently, not wanting to cause any trouble. The cracks in the snake egg grew ever more numerous. I could sense the premonition of it hatching. My incomplete heart blood caused me to lose consciousness for half a day. I felt my chest. Thankfully, the snake egg was still there. But I sensed something was amiss. The snake egg's aura was weighty and fierce. Yet this object had no vitality at all. Only its form was consistent. Its aura was completely different. At this moment, a golden light shot up from Divine Mountain, piercing the clouds. An immense dragon form enshrouded all things. I emerged from the frigid pond. I saw the disciples of the sect gathered on the mountain. I did not linger to observe this grand spectacle. The young disciple succeeded. The crowd exclaimed in amazement. It is the ancient divine beast, the soaring serpent. The elder of the sect stood before the Guanyin terrace. He sliced open the young disciple's pale wrist. The 12 elders protected the young disciple's dharma. The valley was serene and spiritual. The soaring serpent soared in the heavens. The clouds glittered with golden radiance in the sunlight. And the young disciple slowly ascended into the clouds. With grace and elegance, as if an immortal had descended into the mortal realm. The young disciple looked down upon the crowd from on high. In time, this subject shall shoulder the mission of reviving the sect, unfaltering, not disappointing my master, nor the sect. The soaring serpent's body was slender and graceful. Each of its scales was like an exquisitely carved black gemstone, coiling around Chenzi. None who saw it did not exclaim in awe. A true immortal indeed. The master looked upon his disciple, raised since young, with great satisfaction. The Tao blesses my heir. The divine egg in my hand still showed no signs of then what had occurred. How clever, to steal a dragon and pass it off as a phoenix. This so-called immortal was but a thief. Yet the moment I rushed towards the sect, the golden light disappeared. The spiritual energy had already congealed. The soaring serpent's exquisitely beautiful face gazed dazedly at the young disciple Chen Zidao. Master, master, I have finally met you. Chen Zi's expression grew somewhat ill at ease. He looked at the master with nervousness and unease. The master shook his head. The crowd awaited, kneeling to welcome the soaring snake goddess. The sect elders and disciples all knelt down to welcome the soaring snake goddess. The golden soaring snake goddess bestowed her blessings upon Lucian. The disciples in the mountains, the celestial realm, the ever-present Guanyin, Stage. The crowd surrounded the sect's entrance, and the Soaring
shouting
snake,
that it was a
kneeling in
mistake.
unison. But the people were immersed in joy. My winded tone lacked the spiritual power to be heard. It was faint. Unnoticed by anyone, no one cared. I said, Chenzi, you are truly shameless. I hatched the soaring snake. I stood before the sect. Kicking the great gate I had carried up the mountain long ago. The wooden gate made a sound. Everyone's eyes turned toward me, doubt, evil in their gazes. My master's expression froze. Disciple, be at peace, he commanded. I knelt down blankly, gazing at my respected master. I said, Master, elders. Half a year ago, witnessed by the late master, my junior brother and I chose divine eggs. He chose a phoenix egg, while I chose a snake egg. He has since let the phoenix egg die. Yesterday, while I was away, he swapped out my snake bile. He watched me from afar, his willow-like brows furrowed. I raised my voice. I nurtured the soaring snake goddess with my heart's blood. Does she not remember? Month. The soaring snake stirred slightly. The fourth master stepped forward to look at me, but Chenzi stood before him. He gently raised his hand, and the thin, motionless tongue fell silent. I looked at the crowd. Master, please judge. The crowd murmured, growing restless. Master, please judge. The crowd murmured, growing restless. Chenzi's face reddened slightly. Master, I. The master stood up, a palm strike sending me flying to the bright cloud terrace. I had no spiritual power. My vision not as keen as before. Only now did I clearly see the soaring snake. Overnight, he had grown so large, his robes billowed, his demeanor supremely arrogant. He looked at me, his gaze utterly unfamiliar. Standing beside Chenzi, my master's expression was unchanged. Chen Pingyan's spiritual root is damaged. How could he become so narrow-minded? I looked at the late master, uncomprehending. What do you mean? My master shouted, and the divine marshal transformed into a long whip. Before I could react, he viciously struck my face. For that instant, I thought, if roles were reversed, I could surely withstand these lashes. You defame your fellow disciple, fabricating lies, your intentions impure, disregarding moral principles. This is the punishment for you, the eldest senior brother of the sect. Your face feels as if struck by a bolt of lightning. My face bore a bloody gash. Shenwu of the fourth generation had held back his strength somewhat. If it were the usual Shenwu, or the ordinary Fenglai, perhaps I would have been torn to shreds long ago. That day in the hall, Master, you clearly had not finished speaking. Yet another lash struck my heart. Master increased his force, and I coughed up fresh blood, unable to get back up. You still dare look me in the eye? Master gripped the sacred relic. That day in the hall, and solemn, he declared, I saw with my own eyes. Chenzi let you have the phoenix sacred embryo. It is your lack of skill that failed to hatch the holy marshal. Yet you dare act so brazenly, slandering others to cover your failings, and then feign innocence. Is this not how I have taught you all along? I laughed coldly. My mind already understood. The master taught me. Is this what he calls abusing power and reversing right and wrong? Master's eyes grew dark. He swung the divine weapon with full force. I thought to myself, this is it. After this lash, even a demon's soul would scatter. I should not have run my mouth so brazenly. I closed my eyes, awaiting the fatal blow. But it never came down. I opened my eyes. The divine weapon hung in the air. Master circulated his golden dad, gripping the whip with both hands, yet unable to bring it down. My eyes shot open, the Shenwu hanging in midair. Master circulated his golden elixir, gripping the whip with both hands, yet the Shenwu couldn't be struck down. The disciples all stared at this scene, their helpless gazes upon the 12 elders. The fourth Shenwu threw a tantrum. Perhaps finally tired in the end, it flopped limply onto the ground. I observed the situation carefully, quickly providing an exit for Master, so Master wouldn't have to go too far. Brother, you should thank Master. I let out a cold snort. Thank you, master. I slowly sat up, watching the panting master, then addressing the snake goddess. Once a mere mortal, that mortal used his heart's blood to subdue her. Little brother, what did you use to hatch the snake goddess? I revealed my freshly scabbed chest. New and old wounds combined, extremely unsightly. Chenzi's eyes filled with tears. Brother, how far will you go with this? You even hurt yourself. What was the need for that? Shu Ran pulled open his robe, revealing an identical, flawless scar on his chest, matching my chest wound, uncannily so. Chenzi really was meticulous. I sighed. Enough. This couldn't have been his doing alone. Everyone immediately murmured in surprise, their looks turning from evil to hatred. The snake goddess materialized a robe, draping it over Chenzi. Trying to protect him, anger furrowed her brow. She flicked her finger, and I was flung 3 chang high before I could react. I plummeted down heavily, face planted on the ground, my back perhaps broken, legs twisted, unable to move. A bizarre, laughable posture. Collapsed on the observation terrace. I laughed eerily, a stark contrast to Chenzi's crystal clarity. The snake goddess glared disdainfully at my plight. I surveyed my surroundings, clouds swirling on the observation terrace. Master, elders, brothers and sisters watched me, as if observing some unruly rascal. I split the mountain gates, carved these very steps, attained the Shen Wu, built this observation terrace. I requested the Buddha's incarnation. I treated Mount Lushan as my home. It was my mistake. No need to justify myself further. No one would believe me anyway. I laughed and laughed, finally saying lightly, the disciple erred. This commoner is guilty, bearing the burden of his crime. I was thrown into the cold pond, confined for 3 months. Given meager rations, how could I have survived 3 months? The entrance was sealed by talismans of my own design. I couldn't get out, couldn't ascend to the sect, couldn't descend to the mortal realm, using this evil thing of mine to imprison me. Everyone in the sect called me Swift. I lay in the cold pond for a day and a night before crawling out. Looking like a madman with long hair, without anger, the Shendan had already revealed its original form. Bigger than my fist. I could no longer see through ordinary illusions. After revealing its true form, I laughed idiotically at that egg. We are both useless wastes to the sect. Both thrown into the cold pond. Days went by. No one came to see me. I could only drink the pond water to fill my stomach. On the 5th day, a disciple wanted to give me food, calling me senior brother. Standing outside the barrier with a roasted chicken. He was smiling happily. He told me to bark like a dog. Then he threw the roasted chicken to me. I had no strength to argue with him. After a long time, he left after cursing me enough. People always assume the worst in others. That day I didn't take him to the demonic abyss, because I knew the odds were against us. Little did I know it gave him another reason to resent me. On the 10th day, the freezing cold pond water made me hungrier the more I drank. The more I drank, the more I wanted to die. I had already forgotten how many times I passed out. I don't know if it was because of dizziness, but I seemed to see a faint golden light from the phoenix egg surrounding me. I was about to go check it out. Then I passed out again, several times after waking up. I was holding the phoenix egg in my arms. I mocked myself. But unlike the previous random starlight around me, could this have been an illusion? It seemed I had regained some strength, unlike before when I could barely touch the phoenix egg. I had somehow overcome the hunger. Then I discovered the phoenix egg was truly emanating a faint golden light. While I was passed out, the starlight had surrounded me. It was my remaining spiritual power preserving me. So every time I woke up, it looked like a powerless, lifeless egg. Dead. When I was starving, my pale fingers cradled the phoenix egg. I lamented that everyone wanted me dead. Yet you still gave me this obstacle for no reason. The barrier at the entrance was suddenly opened. It hasn't even been 3 months. Have they remembered me? I couldn't see who was coming. I just knew I was fed. And then dumped outside the mountain gate. The Lucian mountain produced such a thing. My true self has already undergone great tribulation. I ruined the sect's treasure. Chen Pingan, you should apologize. After eating, I finally had the strength to speak. I don't admit it was Chenzi who did it. Why should I admit it? The master teacher snorted coldly. Turning to some others, he said, "You dare slander Chenzi? The phoenix Shendon is in this person's arms. Not only did he kill the holy object, he ruined the sect's treasure too. I should have let him die. Take him back alive or dead. I'm leaving Lucian Mountain, no more questions." The master's words sounded just like those of a benevolent immortal. Yet I could not bring myself to cry. Nor could I laugh. That I had taken this man as my master. It turned out my release was merely to frame Chenzi. The disciples of the Hengjiang sect looked at each other in dismay. Seeing my state, they could only take me back first and await the master's judgment. The mountain wind blew. In the distance, a goddess in dark robes stood on the observation terrace. Beside her, the radiant pearl. My eyesight is poor, but I could tell it was Tangi and Chenzi. Our sect's disciples are always plainly dressed. Only Tangi wore those dark robes. I let out a cold laugh. All that had transpired, was it just to feed the dogs, treating Lucian Mountain thus? And Tangshui the same. The Hengjiang disciples had likely never seen me in such a state. Unable to walk or fly. On the way, they used spiritual force to protect my meridians. I clutched the phoenix egg tightly. I had to tell the Hengjiang elders the whole story. I refuse to believe there is no place in this world that can discern right from wrong. But what if Hengjiang is unreasonable? My gaze dimmed. The egg in my arm slipped down, caught by a Hengjiang disciple, who put it back in my embrace. Fellow cultivator, do not lose heart. My master sent me to escort you, to protect you. But if you harbor thoughts of death, the master says you need not come to the mountain. The journey was arduous. I dared not let my guard down for even a moment. I feared that if I passed out, I would never wake again. I must have revenge. I vowed with my life. This debt shall be repaid. I will take back the celestial eye technique and the talismans I created. I will make everyone pay the price. I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I awoke, I was already at the Hengjiang sect. TSK. This child has not a single uninjured spot. Battered like this. The poor pearl. His tone was filled with pity and concern. I turned to look slowly. A white-haired, tanned old man. Was this the Hengjiang master? How familiar his face seemed. Suddenly, I recalled. He was the old man who tricked me out of my talismans. 5 years ago on that day was Chenzi's birthday. My master sent me down the mountain to welcome guests. Cultivators from the sects all came riding on swords. There was simply no path for walking up the mountain. They were afraid I would offend Chenzi again, disrupting the celebratory mood. So they found an excuse to have me wait below. But there was indeed an old man who walked up the mountain path, tottering along shakily. He didn't seem to be from the cultivation world. At that time, he said, I am a mortal Buddhist disciple of one from Lucian Mountain. I wished to go up and see him. I supported him, step by step up the stairs. After walking 1/10 of the way, he pretended he couldn't go on, insisting I carry him on my back. I indulged his antics, knowing he was just messing with me. But he was the only one willing to talk to me. So I carried him. Halfway up, he pretended to be hungry again, but there was no food. So I used a talisman to summon the water element. He praised the talisman as simple yet superb. Top quality workmanship. I just laughed dryly. My master always says if it lacks surprise, it's garbage. Yet you call it spiritual quality. You don't understand, old man. You're just fooling me. He also laughed and said, a clueless child, your pearls go unnoticed. Better to follow me and be a farmer instead. I declined his offer. Then he said, perhaps the sun's radiance on your words will allow them to dispel evil. I suspected he had no spiritual power. It had just passed it all to me. Later, I don't know how, but the talismans I created became widespread in this sect. My master recognized my hand in Lucian Mountain style and took credit for it himself, claiming Lucian talismans were the best of the sect. Using it to widely recruit disciples, I wanted to expose him, but my throat went dry. No words would come out, so I simply raised a finger. That immortal saw I had awoken and helped prop me up, calling a disciple to bring me water. "Thank you for saving me, immortal," but he just waved his hand dismissively. "Don't thank me, I can't really save you. Your spiritual channels are severed, not a shred of energy left to protect your body. You have so many wounds, big and small. How many lives do you have? 5 years ago, didn't I tell you to leave the mountain with me? But you refused. 3 years ago, I went to the devil's abyss to slay demons. Did anyone thank you? They couldn't wait for you to leave." The immortal's eyes reddened as he spoke. He abruptly turned away. "After your path of cultivation ended like this, what future do you have? Faint-hearted. You should have ended it yourself long ago." I think I glimpsed tears in the immortal's eyes and felt dazed. But then the immortal turned back to me sharply. "Didn't I tell you to go die? You must think I talk too much, but I insist on telling you what the celestial eye is. Darling, I'll just let you have it. I'll speak softly, Your Excellency. That is what they stole away." The immortal lord sighed, saying foolishly, regrettably, "Iron cannot become steel." The rabbit suddenly called out inopportunely, waking everyone up. I reckon people in the sect seldom hear this sound. Their eyes wide, they looked at me. I scratched my head. "Any steamed buns?" The immortal lord's practice is buns, none of those. Plenty of roasted chicken, though. People in the Hengjiang sect call me little apprentice brother. I join them in calling the white-bearded old man master. On the day I became a disciple, the white-bearded old man glared at me. 5 years ago, I asked you to follow me, yet you only come now. I quickly kowtowed to become his disciple. Don't dwell on it, master. It's useless. Even spreading spiritual herbs on me, I cannot absorb them. The skills elder martial sister taught me, I cannot even begin to avenge myself. It's not that elder sister was neglectful. It's just that without spiritual power, I'm as ordinary as a Wudang monk. Whenever master looks at me holding that scrotum to rest, he sighs. A pearl enshrouded, indeed, seeing me clutching that object day after day to rest. He points at my nose and scolds me. "You cannot let go of your old home. I feed you, I clothe you with phoenix eggs. Yet in the cold pond, you waste what little spiritual power remains." It seems he has not died. Only after such an ordeal. No one knows when he will awaken. The Phoenix Convention's Hengjiang sect is situated atop a celestial mountain. At night, he would tuck his head into my bedding. I often used the spiritual herbs elder martial sister gave me to make a bath for the phoenix egg. When master's wife saw this, she too would scold me, watching the little old man snort and glare. I found it amusing. Then seriously I said, "No. He is reminding me to take revenge." Master looked worried then, and went down the mountain to buy wine. I know he has pored over the secret books, but found no way to deal with this. Nor did he know what deranged art Tangshi had used. These past few days, he insisted on coming to Hengjiang. The sect's warriors were all beaten back by master. He said, if they wanted to apologize, they must bring forth the celestial eye. Hearing this, Tangshi left excitedly. Master has been very good to me. I often consoled him. Avenging myself is my own affair. I do not wish to implicate the Hengjiang sect. Master scolded me even more fiercely. Damn that Lucian mountain. Master is crafty and devious. Besides that trick of his, he's worthless. His disciples are crooked as a humpback. That black-hearted lotus is used to being a thieving jockey. Tangshi is just a demonic wolf in sheep's clothing. The black towel of the lymph nodes. It was the 3rd month of my stay in Chengyuan. I heard that all the sects had great joy. Chenzi and Tangshi had become Tao companions. With the blessing of the celestial eye, their cultivation greatly increased. The union of the goddess Tangshi and her subject made Lucian Mountain the #1 sect in the world. Yet it could hardly be called good news. I was growing further and further away from them. A few days later, my master summoned me. He drank small cups of wine while scolding me. You haven't been eating properly these days. Are you going to use your chin to kill the people of Lucian Mountain? I picked up a peanut and stuffed it into my mouth. My master knocked the peanut out of my hand and shoved a roasted chicken leg at me. Eat this, you skinny thing who doesn't gain weight. I gnawed on the chicken leg and drank wine with him. He looked at my feet. I thought he was drunk, so I kept nibbling at the chicken leg. Suddenly my master said, Chen Pingan, you said your original form was a stalk of grass? What kind of grass? Rice straw, ha 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 ha. My master laughed for a long time, until tears came out from laughing so hard. No wonder you're so skinny. It seemed my master wanted to laugh again, but he held it in and slowly burped instead. Then he grabbed my hand. You know, in the mortal world I was a rice farmer. I gained karmic affinity, which gave me the chance to join Chengyuan sect. I sold rice grain, and your original form was rice straw. What a fateful connection. Child, don't blame your master for scolding you all the time, all right? My master's eyes grew more and more red. What nonsense was my master saying? My master cherished me, cared for me, even though I was just a stalk of grass. My master cut off what I was saying, the tears that had come out from laughing still in his eyes. Silly child, even if you were just a stalk of grass, you would still be a one-of-a-kind grass in this world. No matter who bullies this old master, I will never allow it. When I woke up, it was 3 days later. I really suspected my master had bought fake wine. I had told him before, don't haggle over things you shouldn't haggle for. Doesn't this just waste time for my cultivation? Before I could leave the room, the senior martial sister pushed a wooden box into my hands. Her eyes were red. She looked at me as if gravely injured. Chen Pingan, master has ascended. How is that possible? He was still drinking wine with me 3 days ago. The wooden box dropped. It was the celestial eye. He went to retrieve the celestial eye. I was struck by a heavy hammer. I could barely speak. He let me sleep for 3 days. His cultivation was so low. I'm sorry, senior sister. I shouldn't have come to Chengyuan. Senior sister supported me. Tears streaming down, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. After a long while, his face flushed. He looked at me resolutely and said, Junior brother, you must seize the opportunity to cultivate the celestial eye to increase your cultivation. Only then can you protect the Hengjiang sect and retrieve the attendant of our master. The entire Hengjiang sect had no time to grieve. Even the myriad disciples rushed up the mountain to intensify their cultivation, to retrieve the celestial eye. Master used his body to summon lightning. The soaring serpent was injured. Elder sister brought back the celestial eye, but her cultivation was completely depleted. Elder sister told me, Master has passed away. Then she said, others ride on the Hengjiang sect's head, defecating and urinating on us. I'll let them see who is the #1 sect in the world. When I held the celestial eye, I felt a sense of familiarity. The burning red celestial eye seemed like an old friend I hadn't seen in a long time. It trembled slightly, like a startled little animal. I didn't even have time to use it to repair my meridians. Someone was breaking into the mountain's main entrance. Chenzi stood at the mountain gate, the soaring serpent always by his side. Only a couple of Lucian mountain disciples behind him. I drew my sword and walked out. All the Hengjiang disciples came out to meet them. Then I saw the corners of my mouth curl up slightly. The stray dogs from Lucian Mountain have come. The Hengjiang sect dares to draw their swords. The spiritual energy here is indeed abundant. Soaring serpent, I think this place would make a good cultivation ground for Lucian's outer sect disciples. Elder sister gestured for me to go back inside. I nodded at her, reassuring her. Chenzi's mouth was as foul as ever. The soaring serpent's brows furrowed slightly, looking at me as if he wanted to say something. Elder brother, do you think the Hengjiang sect can protect you? The old man is dead. I am the pride of Lucian Mountain. The Hengjiang sect stole our sacred treasure. How regrettable. Hand over the celestial eye quickly. Otherwise, the Hengjiang sect will be buried with you. My expression turned grave. Chenzi, I said, you still dare to address me and our master? It was you who stole the Hengjiang sect's treasure first. The celestial eye belonged to me originally. Even if I discard it, there's no reason for me to give it to you. Chenzi glared at me coldly. His gaze was chilling. I continued, there's one more thing that belongs to me. I pointed at the soaring serpent, this thing. It's just an unwanted piece of trash to me. But you seem to think it's a treasure. You've used it for so long. The soaring serpent's dark brown pupils darkened slightly. He didn't get angry, he just looked at me. He seemed to want to take a step forward to speak. But Chenzi stopped him. Chenzi let out a cold snort. A palm strike whistled towards me. Chen Pingan. You dare insult me, hey You won't learn true skills at Hengjiang Academy. Your glib tongue has indeed improved considerably. The disciples of the Hengjiang sect behind him could hardly contain themselves, eager to step forward. I gave them a look. They retreated once more. I deliberately provoked him. This time, he seemed to realize I was not as formidable as the rumors suggested. Logically speaking, having combined with the celestial maiden and with the blessing of divine power, his strikes should not be this ordinary. Chenzi seemed more at ease, whispering in my ear, I know. Elder brother, you must be cultivating the celestial eye. Just like me, a scholar and a gentleman of Lucian Mountain who doesn't know you've coveted the celestial maiden from the start. Like a rogue. You've been jealous since we were young, always vying for our master's favor. But you could never surpass him. The celestial maiden protected him. You fiend. I see my junior brother is 1,000, no, 1,000,000 times better than you. Chenzi's face contorted hideously. With a wave of his hand, the celestial maiden was flung dozens of meters away, spitting fresh blood. Chenzi laughed. Did you think I was some weakling? As evil as your master. The disciples of the Hengjiang sect drew their swords, ready to strike. As if released from a frozen spell. Finally able to take a step forward. They said, forgive us. It was the ancient moon immortal who told us, you are Chenzi the illustrious. Very well, the celestial maiden schemed her death. An indescribable emotion welled up in me. Like an unwanted little cat. Looking at me with pleading eyes. I glared at him resentfully, not knowing what scheme they had concocted. Chenzi said, today, I was too rash. I can only say. The celestial maiden spoke up, slow down, don't think I don't know. You came to the Hengjiang sect seeking an opportunity against Chenzi. As I went back, I suddenly understood why Tangshi seemed bound, as if under a spell. That day, the 12 elders joined forces to bind Tangshi's spiritual energy to Chenzi's, essentially making Chenzi Tangshi's master, forcing him to obey, no matter the command. If he resisted, even a deity would be utterly destroyed. With Tangshi present, even a handful of Lucian Mountain disciples would be as formidable as 1,000 armies. I sensed something amiss and retreated 3 steps, silently erecting a barrier. My barrier was well constructed, fortified with talismans, making it extremely sturdy, but I didn't know if it could withstand Tangshi's absolute spiritual power, even for a single strike. Chenzi stepped aside, motioning to the celestial maiden, go on, take back my celestial eye. Tangshi approached me. He spoke through the barrier, word by word. Will you give me the celestial eye? In my dream, his willow brows furrowed. His expression fluctuated. His eyes reddened. His fists clenched tight. In a restrained, improvised tone, he said, I won't harm you. Give it to me, I beg you. His tone was almost pleading. What was he doing? What if I didn't give it? Would the celestial maiden smite me this time? Tangshi, I have no patience. Chenzi shouted from behind. Get lost, Tangshi roared at Chenzi. His eyes bloodshot. His face deathly pale. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Chenzi laughed in delight. His expression altering. He immediately knelt before Chenzi. Forgive me, master. Forgive me, I was wrong. The disciples of the Hengjiang sect were quite shaken. The ancient celestial maiden Tangshi actually knelt in apology before a cultivator. But the Lucian Mountain disciples found it unsurprising. As if watching a play unfold. A brilliant smile slowly spread across Chenzi's face. Go do something to please your master. Tangshi roared. instantly transforming into a black coiling dragon over the Hengjiang sect. Winds rose, clouds billowed, thunder rumbled in the sky. Birds and beasts fled. Disciples of the Hengjiang sect form ranks with me. I'll stand here, using all my power to oppose Tangxi. Tear seeped from the black dragon's eyes. Yet its force did not diminish. One strike shattered my barrier. My barrier withstood that first strike. But I'd have to bear the brunt of the second. He coiled overhead, roaring. The situation grew dire. Why wouldn't he strike? Then the heavens opened with a torrential downpour. Chenzi urged Tangxi repeatedly. The massive dragon wailed in the sky, unleashing the full force of its strike. I stood there, determined to withstand it. Rain blurred my vision. If I die, so be it. I felt a lingering unwillingness, hatred for the Hengjiang sect's treachery. That I should face such peril, unable to avenge my master. Suddenly, golden light flashed in the sky. The cry of a bird rang out, its fury like a blaze, a dazzling bolt of lightning. Dove towards Tangxi, its vast wings shielding the Hengjiang mountains. Shielding us. It was the phoenix amidst the raging storm. Only flashes of gold and black could be seen shuddering. The phoenix gaining the upper hand. Tangxi like a tiger, unwilling to battle, enduring the phoenix's relentless assaults. After several clashes, Tangxi was overwhelmed. The two divine beasts then took human form. The phoenix gripped Tangxi's neck, its tone stern. How dare you try to kill him? Tangxi lay crumpled on the ground, his waist and legs brutally broken by the phoenix. The color drained from Tangxi's face. He looked at me from afar. Forgive me, the phoenix remained severe. Why did you dare to kill him? He answered. My eyes were black as ink. The phoenix's silver-white face was filled with killing intent. Chengji approached trembling from outside the mountain gate. Do you still remember me, Phoenix? It was I who fed you spirit grass every day, and used my crimson flames to keep you warm when you rested. Do you still remember me? The phoenix released him. Tangxi's face was icy cold, his eyes flickering with a chilling light as he looked at Chenzi. It was you, my heart is at ease. Only for the phoenix. The celestial maiden does not hide. She also yearns for Chenzi, doesn't she? The corners of Chenzi's mouth curved upwards as he walked towards the phoenix, his eyes revealing a fanatic gleam. It is I, Chenzi.